The sky burned the day the Galactic Council declared war on humanity. It wasn't a war of soldiers and fleets, not at first. It was a war of silence, a single decree, transmitted across every screen, every comms device, every last flickering hologram on Earth and its colonies. By order of the Galactic Council, the human species is hereby designated a threat to interstellar stability. All access to the hyperlane network is revoked. Any human vessel found beyond the Sol exclusion zone will be neutralized. Compliance is mandatory. No warning, no negotiation, just execution by legislation. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the wreckage of New Barcelona's spaceport, her boots crunching over shattered glass. Around her, the air smelled of ionized metal and panic. The Council's drones had already begun their work, disabling engines, seizing docked ships, cutting Earth off from the stars. A hand gripped her arm. Dr. Priya Khatri, her oldest friend, and the only engineer who'd ever outstubborned her, stared at the sky with a look of cold fury. "They're grounding us, like animals." Elena exhaled, her breath fogging in the sudden chill. "They're trying to kill us without firing a shot." They learned the truth too late. The Council hadn't just exiled humanity, they'd cleansed it. In the weeks before the announcement, key figures had vanished. Scientists, engineers, military leaders, almost all of them men. At first, the media called it a coincidence, then a conspiracy, then finally, what it was, a targeted extinction. "They're sterilizing us," whispered MUC Commander Naomi Okoye, her voice raw over the encrypted channel. Her fighter squadron had been ambushed near Mars. She was one of 3 survivors. "They're leaving us just enough to starve slowly." Elena's daughter, Luna, sat curled in the corner of their makeshift bunker, her small fingers tracing the edges of a stolen star chart. "Mama," she asked, her voice too calm for a child who'd just watched the world end, "are we going to die?" Elena crouched in front of her, cupping her face. "No, Mia Strella. We're going to remember." They gathered in the dark. The Council had taken their ships, their ports, their access to the stars, but they'd left the scrapyards, the forgotten hulls, the prototypes deemed too dangerous for human hands. Priya's hands flew over a cracked terminal, her fingers stained with engine grease. The Thermopylae, it's still in dry dock. The Council never finished scrapping it. Naomi's grin was all teeth. Then we finish what they started. They worked in shifts, stealing parts, rewiring systems, teaching themselves the forbidden math of slip space from half-deleted files. The Council had underestimated them in every way, but their greatest mistake was assuming human women didn't know how to burn a galaxy down. The night before launch, Elena broke into the Council's abandoned comms array. Her message was short, unencrypted, a whisper in the dark to every human still listening. "You were wrong. We were never yours to erase." Then the buffet, last fleet, 37 ships, 10,000 souls, and 1 stolen dreadnought lit their engines, and humanity fought its way back to the stars. The slipstream tore at the Thermopylae like a living thing. Elena gripped the command console as the ship shuddered, its stolen warp drive screaming in protest. Around her, the bridge crew braced against the violent tremors, Priya swearing in 3 languages as she fought to stabilize their trajectory, Naomi barking orders to the skeleton crew. 30 seconds to exit," Priya shouted over the groaning metal. "If we don't implode first." Elena's gaze flicked to the viewport, where reality itself seemed to fracture. The slipstream wasn't just a tunnel through space, it was a wound, and something about it felt wrong. Then, silence. The Thermopylae lurched back into real space with a final bone-rattling jolt. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The only sound was the frantic beeping of damaged systems. Then Naomi let out a sharp laugh. "We're alive! Holy hell, we're alive!" Elena didn't share her relief, because outside the viewport, where the rogue planet Elysium 9 should have been, there was nothing. Just an endless field of debris. The scans confirmed it first. "These aren't asteroids," Priya said, her voice hollow. "They're ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Ancient, shattered husks drifting in the void, their hulls marked with sigils Elena didn't recognize, twisted, spiraling designs that made her eyes ache if she stared too long. Naomi exhaled sharply. This isn't a planet. It's a mass grave. Then the distress signal hit. A looping transmission, weak but unmistakable. Human. Elena's blood turned to ice. That's impossible. No one else made the jump with us. Priya's hands flew over the console. It's coming from one of the derelicts. And Elena, she looked up, her face pale. It's old. They boarded the wreck in pressurized suits, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. The ship, what was left of it, was a nightmare of collapsed corridors and frozen corpses. But the bodies weren't human. They were something else. Tall, thin, their elongated limbs fused with the ship's metal, like they'd grown into it. Naomi's grip tightened on her rifle. What the hell were they? Priya crouched beside one of the corpses, her scanner flickering. Not what. Who? She turned the skull gently, revealing a rusted identification plaque fused to the bone. The text was faded, but readable. Codename, Architect. Then the lights came on. The ship groaned. To life around them. Elena's comms erupted in static. Then a voice, whispering in a language she'd never heard, but somehow understood. You should not be here. The corpses twitched. Naomi didn't hesitate. Run! They barely made it back to the shuttle before the derelict's airlocks slammed shut behind them. As they launched away, Elena watched in horror as the dead ship's engines flared to life. Its broken hull twisting like something alive. Priya's hands shook as she pulled up the scans. It's not just that ship. Elena, they're all waking up. Across the graveyard, 100 dead vessels pulsed with sudden, sickly light. And then as one, they turned toward the Thermopylae. Back on the bridge, the transmission finally cleared. A face flickered onto the screen. Human us, but wrong. Eyes too dark, skin too pale. A ghost of a woman in a dead ship's uniform. You don't remember, the woman whispered. But we do. They lied to you. They lied to all of us. Elena's throat tightened. Who are you? The woman smiled, and it was full of sorrow. The first daughters of Earth, the ones who built the council. Then the screen dissolved into static, just as the first of the ghost ships opened fire. Plasma fire lit up the void as the ghost ships descended on the Thermopylae. Elena gripped the armrests of her command chair as the deck shuddered beneath her. Evasive maneuvers, now! Naomi's hands flew across the tactical console. They're not just shooting, they're hurting us. The derelict vessels moved with unnatural precision, their shattered hulls weaving through the debris field like predators circling prey. Priya's voice crackled over the comms from engineering. They're weapons. They're not just damaging us. They're rewriting our systems. A console exploded nearby as the ship's AI stuttered, its voice distorting. Direct-to-Tive override. Surrender to Architect Prime. Luna's small hand slipped into Elena's. Mama, they're not trying to kill us. Elena's blood ran cold. They were being reprogrammed. The memory core. The ghost woman's transmission had left coordinates, a single structure buried beneath Elysium 9's ice. We're walking into a trap, Naomi muttered as their dropship descended through the planet's violent storm systems. Priya adjusted her environmental suit, or the only place we'll find answers. What they found was worse than any trap. The structure wasn't a base. It was a tomb, walls lined with frozen corpses, human, architect, and something in between. At its center stood a monolithic data core, its surface etched with the same spiraling patterns as the derelict ships. Priya connected her tablet, and the core awakened. Holograms flickered to life, a history not taught in any human archive. The first expansion, 2157, humanity's first warp drive, first contact with the Veilari, who called themselves architects. The betrayal, 2162, The architects offer, join their Galactic Council or be quarantined. The Purge, 2165. What happened to the human women who did join? The final image made Elena vomit in her helmet. A laboratory. Rows of examination tables. Human women, alive, as their bodies were twisted into something else. Priya's voice was hollow. They weren't building a council. They were building slaves. The awakening. The core wasn't just a recorder. It was a trigger. As the holograms faded, the ice beneath them began to crack. Something massive stirred below, a shadow moving in the depths. Naomi grabbed Elena's arm. We need to leave. Now. Too late. The tomb's walls shuddered, frost cascading from ancient machinery, roaring back to life. From the darkness below, a voice echoed, not through comms, but inside their skulls. You should not have come back. Then the floor gave way. They fell into darkness. When Elena's vision cleared, she wished it hadn't. The chamber was vast, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent veins. At its center floated massive hybridized form. Part human, part machine, part something unimaginable. Dozens of spinal cords stretched from its back, connecting to the ceiling like puppet strings. Priya's scanner flickered wildly. That's not just an architect, that's the first one. The creature's face, if it could be called that, twisted into something resembling a smile. Captain Vasquez, it rasped, its voice a chorus of dead women. We've been waiting for you. Elena's breath fogged her visor. What are you? The thing that had once been human tilted its head. The first volunteer. Then the walls screamed, and the real horror began. The Prime Architect's words hung in the air like poison. The first volunteer. Elena's mind reeled. The thing floating before her, this grotesque fusion of human and machine, had once been like her. A woman, a leader, someone who had trusted the council. Priya's voice cut through Elena's daze. It's not just a hybrid, it's a control node. Her scanner flickered wildly. It's connected to every architect, maybe even the council itself. Naomi already had her rifle raised. Then we put a round in its skull and end this. The Prime Architect laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You still don't understand. We were not conquered. We were perfected. Its spinal cords pulsed, and the chamber walls melted, revealing hundreds of frozen pods, each containing a human woman in various stages of transformation. Luna gasped. Mama, they're alive. Beneath the pod, something stirred. A machine, vast and ancient, its surface etched with the same spiraling patterns as the derelict ships. Priya's breath hitched. That's not a weapon. It's a stellar forge. The Prime Architect spread its twisted limbs. The tool that built the council. The tool that will remake you. Elena's blood turned to ice. This was why they'd been lured here. Not to die. To be replaced. The first pod hissed open. A woman, no, something almost a woman stepped out. Her eyes were hollow. Her fingers ended in razor-sharp filaments. Join us, the Prime Architect crooned. Become eternal. Naomi's rifle barked. The hybrid woman staggered, then kept moving. Damn it! Headshots don't work. Priya grabbed Elena's arm. The forge. It doesn't just transform matter. It rewrites it. We can use it against them. Elena looked at Luna, then at the rows of pods. She made her decision. They fought their way to the forge's control dais, Naomi covering their retreat as more pods opened. Priya's fingers flew over the alien interface. I can reverse the polarity, turn their own programming against them. You will fail, the Prime Architect thundered, its form shuddering as it descended toward them. Elena raised her sidearm, not at the architect, but at the forge's core, not trying to reprogram them. She met the monster's gaze, trying to remind them. She fired. The reckoning. The forge screamed to life. A pulse of golden light erupted, washing over the chamber. Where it touched the hybrids, they convulsed, their machine parts sloughing away like dead skin. The Prime Architect howled, its spinal cord snapping as its human form reasserted itself. A woman ancient and frail, collapsing to the floor. "What have you done?" she whispered. Elena knelt beside her. "Gave you back your humanity." Across the chamber, the pod women stirred, awakening, remembering. Outside, the ghost ships went dark. One cycle later, the Thermopylae returned to council space, but it did not come alone. Behind it sailed the reclaimed architect fleet, not as slaves, but as sisters. And at Elena's side stood the first reborn daughters of Earth, their eyes alight with fury. The council's transmission was frantic. "You don't understand what you've unleashed." Elena smiled. "Yes, we do." The forge flared, the stars themselves bent, and humanity, true humanity, took its throne. Luna walks through the gardens of New Eden, her fingers trailing over holographic monuments, the names of the lost, the sacrificed, the reborn. A shadow falls beside her. The prime architect, now just a woman, her face lined with grief and hard-won wisdom. "Was it worth it?" she asks. Luna watches the stars. "Ask me in 1,000 years." Fade to black.